Hello everybody and welcome back to Microchip's Design Week 2021. I'll be your host today, Clifford Swartz, and today is actually day 2 of Design Week. For those of you unfamiliar, Design Week is a 6-day virtual event where you get the opportunity to watch live demos, speak to real-life Microchip experts, and furthermore actually attend classes that those experts designed specifically for you. Design Week is a 6-day event, 3 days this week and 3 days next week, so we're going to have one session tomorrow, take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Today's topic is going to be medical, and I promise you that we're going to go straight to that. But before we do, I'm going to throw it over to Wayne Freeman in the booth, and he's going to tell you how to participate. How you doing, Wayne?
Doing great, Clifford. How are you doing this morning?
I am well.
Awesome, awesome. So hello, everybody on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Thank you for joining us. And I see that we have people from all over the world. We've got people from Egypt, people from India, all the way to Austin, Texas.
I love it.
Great. Great. Thank you for showing up and interacting with us. So just a few notes here before we get started. Please make sure you like the video, whichever platform you're on. Please subscribe to all of our platforms. We'd love for you to do that, especially on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, of course. And basically just share this with other people if you feel they can benefit from it. This is going to be an open discussion. We're gonna have a panel with preeminent experts in medical. So please feel free to ask questions. We have a few moderators in the chat who are going to be picking up some of the questions, but I will also choose a few of the questions to ask of our panelists. So, please, chat with me, and we'll get that to them. Now, moving forward, just wanted to kind of give you guys a recap here about how to get to the rest of Design Week, as Clifford alluded to. So after our live stream today, go to our event portal, and if you haven't registered already, please go register at microchip.com/designweek. And basically, Clifford's got it up on the screen here, so I'll look over. So after this live stream is done, we actually have talk tracks that you can view, we've got low power leadership. We've got the medical guys that are actually going to be available to have meetings between 10 a.m. Pacific and noon Pacific, and a couple of more. So it's going to be really fun. They're going to talk to you about that a little later. But in addition to that, you can interact with all the content from yesterday at IoT. You can meet with an actual human by using the meetings function. And you can interact with the other participants by using the chat function. So it's a really, really cool platform that we've got there.
Absolutely. We also have trivia, which might be a fun thing for people to check out.
By the way, I forget to mention, but the trivia piece of it. If you guys actually do the trivia and you answer the questions right, you can win prizes. Now, the prizes range from development boards to cold hard cash. So just go ahead and hit the trivia button and try your luck. So now that we've kind of laid the ground rules here, I'm going to toss it over to our smart home and Mr. Mike Pierce. How are you doing, Mike?
Great, Wayne. So, well, welcome to the smart home, day 2. And I'm here with a very special guest from the medical group at Microchip. Zhang, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Michael. Welcome to the medical section of the smart home. My name is Zhang Feng, Medical Applications Engineer at Microchip Technology. My work here involve developing reference design, demo board, and providing customer support for medical applications.
It's going to be great talking to you later with some of the demos we have behind us. So, Wayne, I'm going to try and find my golf clubs and go have a round of golf while you guys are talking, and I'll catch you later.
Oh, see you in a bit. Stay tuned, though. All right, well, we'll toss it back over to the stage, and I'm excited for today's discussion, Clifford.
Me too. Thank you guys very much. So, it's not just going to be me on stage talking to you guys. I am very lucky to have 2 medical experts, one in studio with me, one on via the power of the internet. Firstly, to my left, we have Martin. How you doing, Martin?
Great. Good to be here, Clifford. Thanks.
Of course. Always good to have you. Martin's been on several of our previous live streams. He's probably a familiar face to you. Avery, I believe this is your first time live. Are you excited? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling very excited, happy to be here. I'm just sad I couldn't be in the studio with you guys. I see you guys have a middle section that would have been perfect for me.
We're reserving it for you next year. Hopefully we can fly you out. But
I'm looking forward to it.
me too. So I'm going to start the discussion off by throwing it over to Martin. Martin, where do we currently see Microchip in medical devices?
It's a good question, Clifford, thanks. A lot of people know about Microchip, but they may not know a whole lot about what we're doing in medical. So it's one of the things we're doing today, obviously. If you haven't heard about us or been more involved, we want to let you know about it. As you can see on the slide that's being shown right now, we've got product in virtually any kind of medical equipment you can think of. In fact, this list that we're showing right now on the slide is a partial list only. It is a list of our product that is designed in and in production right now. And it covers a gamut of stuff that's in hospitals and clinics, portable devices, emergency medicine, home use devices, wearables, even implantable devices, devices like implanted cardiodefibrillators or pacemakers. And so we've been doing this for a long time. We've got a lot of product out there, and we continue to service our medical clients, those who are designing medical devices. In fact, we are servicing all types of and enabling product in all kinds of devices for FDA Class 1, 2, and 3, and in other countries all over the world.
And so from my understanding, Class 3 is life-saving, life-critical sort of applications, correct?
Exactly, yeah. For those that aren't familiar with that, that's the highest critical safety levels and has the most scrutiny and takes the longest to go through, like the FDA or the EU as far as getting certification, so yeah.
Right. So it's quite an impressive list that we have on screen right now, and like you mentioned, it's not even exhausted, there's more. So all those different applications, why have those designers chosen Microchip?
Again, you know, that's really good. We have a lot of experience, as I mentioned before. I mean, we've been supplying product to medical designers since our inception of our company. But in particular, we started a focused medical group back in 2006. That group has been active the whole time, continuing to supply to our product and support to our medical design customers. We will engage basically without restrictions. Mentioned before, we're involved with FDA Class 3 and other life-critical, life-support applications throughout the world as far as supplying product and support for those applications. And finally, we feel we have an unmatched capability as far as long-term support of our products. The basic idea is that as long as our customers continue to buy product from us, we'll continue to manufacture it. And in fact, we've got instances where we've got medical customers who've been buying the same microcontroller, for example, for over 20 years based on an older design. We froze that design for them so they can continue to meet requirements and not have to go back to FDA. And of course, the silicon revs have moved on as far as being more modern and enter standard product, but for these customers, we held that product together as far as that one silicon rev so they could continue to make that product and continue to meet FDA requirements.
So one of the big points, and there's many big points for why somebody would choose Microchip, but one of the biggest ones you're hitting on is support. Do you mind expounding a little bit about some of the support that Microchip offers?
Yeah. We have a great support network. I've been impressed. I've worked for a lot of different companies over the years, and I've been impressed with the kind of support we have. Particularly for medical, we have, of course, our local support, whether it be account or our technical support. We have our in-house factory application support for all the product. And then, of course, what's somewhat unique to us is we have this long-term experience in medical support, whether it be for your account and business issues or your device applications, technical issues. We have people that are there and available to help you. So, in fact, this whole group, you see the local folks, the factory applications, and the medical people, we all work together to make sure that you're able to get your designs to market quickly and to revenue quickly.
I love it. So, obviously, the world has been shaken by COVID-19. Just to set the scene, do you mind talking about some of the healthcare industry challenges before COVID-19?
Sure. Yeah, COVID-19 kind of rocked the world, obviously, and it's many sad things, but some of the good news is that the medical devices and the healthcare folks have risen to the challenge. Our customers and their customers' customers have risen to the challenge. Healthcare responders and things like that is really a big deal. So, but before we hit the COVID-19 pandemic, there were certain things that were happening in the industry. One, there was a huge push and pressure to cut costs in healthcare, in the healthcare model. There were large investments both by venture capital firms as well as very large tech firms that you're all probably familiar with. In many countries, the law provided powerful incentives to collect more data and to have just a healthcare model based more on the outcomes versus just charging for fees. And what grew out of all of that was the birth, really, of the Internet of Medical Things, or IoT. And then we had more emphasis on connectivity, cybersecurity, medical wearables, things that rather hadn't been thought about in the medical space so much, became more and more a reality, really. So it's been interesting. It's been an interesting run, even before COVID, right?
Absolutely. So those were healthcare industry challenges. Do you mind talking a little bit about some of the market trends that we were looking at before COVID?
Yeah, so what came from all of that is because of all the effort to cut costs and lower, lower power in designs, lower costs, and is such. Well, one of the examples is a growing emphasis on home care and personalized medicine. A lot of that had to do with the fact that traditionally people would stay in the hospital, patients would stay in the hospital for a long time and maybe longer than they needed to. They would like to go home, and of course those who pay for it, the insurance companies would like to get them home healthy, but as soon as possible.
Right.
And so some of that is they can be monitored now in the home and make sure that everything's going fine after their hospital stay for a temporary basis until everybody's fine with the data they're getting from the home use device that's the patient's using. There's also issues with people with chronic diseases that need to be monitored constantly. Instead of them going back into the hospital or the clinic constantly, they can remain at home, sort of a quality of care or quality of lifestyle issue, as well as lowering costs for everybody all around. So that's good as far as that. So what came about that, when we talk about the wearables, is, most people know that the wearables really kind of started more with consumer fitness type of devices, but they became interesting to medical companies also. Some of that transition was that the consumer fitness companies started adding more medical capabilities, such as measuring heart rate or blood oxygen levels and things like that with their wearables, along with steps and tracking and things like that. And so some of them started moving towards medical, either wanting to partner up with medical companies for the longer term part, or actually to be a part of medical studies and things like that. Also, traditional medical companies wanted to get more technology in that space. So again, they may partner with the consumer companies, or they start just outright designing their own devices that are wearable. So we get this gray area of what's consumer, what's medical. Ultimately, it's medical when it gets, submitted to the FDA. But the technology, there's a lot of overlap that's been going on and continues to go on really now. And then the final piece of the puzzle, was the interesting one, is medication or drug delivery. We're seeing more and more the issue of patient compliance, meaning the drugs are going to be delivered in the home, the medication probably by the patient, or maybe a caregiver that's trained to a certain level. But there's a lot of things that need to be designed into that medication delivery device to make sure it's safe and the patient's able to deliver it properly.
And so you've set a very good scene about what the world was like before COVID. What happened after, or what happened during for the medical industry?
So, not too surprising, the COVID-19 crisis just amplified all of these challenges and all these requirements that were happening in the marketplace. And so we see just an acceleration in a lot of areas. Internet of Medical Things, or IoT, edge computing, we'll talk a little bit more about that. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, connectivity, security, more and more medical wearables. Telehealth devices, basically devices in the home that can be used for example, for a visit between a doctor and a patient. A lot of that just got accelerated. All those requirements, all those trends really became a lot quicker. Some of the other things that happened along the lines with the start of the COVID-19 crisis was there was a media frenzy around global shortages. There was a lot of things that were shortages, masks and things like that. But one of the things that we were definitely involved with and aware of was the fact that there was a huge shortage in ventilators. And a lot of companies were pressed as far as getting more ventilators out. The FDA put out an emergency use authorization to reactivate ones that had been, the older ones that weren't in use so much anymore, and also to be able to utilize, where appropriate, different devices that could help, like oxygen concentrators or CPAP machines or anesthesia gas machines. So again, we were involved with a lot of that, obviously, in helping our clients, get more product out quicker, especially with some of these alternatives. And one of the other areas we saw a big boom in, and a lot of people didn't hear about in the media, was just a huge demand for things like thermometers or pulse oximeters.
Of course.
Seems kind of obvious when you talk about it now, but thermometers, obviously, to check temperature if someone has a virus. Pulse oximeters is specifically to measure the heart rate. I'm sorry, specifically the oxygen level in the blood to see if there's any respiratory problems going on. So a lot of this happened. A lot of the demand increased. It was important to these devices, were smart, connected, and secure.
So I wanted to dig a little deeper into something that you mentioned earlier. I'm familiar with the concept of IoT from the live stream we did yesterday, but do you mind breaking down what IoMT means and also what you mean by edge computing in the medical sense?
Sure. And there's a lot of content yesterday from that, understanding the IoT is basically that connection of anything out to a cloud in a lot of cases through the edge. There's the edge computing part, which is actually in the middle from that on the diagram, if you remember from Livestream yesterday.
Yep.
But basically the idea is that more and more of this healthcare needs to happen somewhere else. You know, the physicians, providers are in one place, and then the patient's in another. And so we have much more of the need to say these devices need to be smart, need to be connected, need to be secure, whether it's the IoT type we're looking at or even the edge computing. And those are things we're seeing a lot more of that's really important in this day and age. It was starting to happen pre-COVID, definitely happening post the original COVID-19 crisis.
Absolutely. And so one of the points you call out for this slide is telehealth, and I'm pretty sure we have a talk track later today if you guys are interested in learning more. And you can also talk to actual real-life experts about this subject too.
Right, there
which
you
is
go.
pretty
Yeah,
exciting.
telehealth being such an important part of it, we broke that out and we have the talk track later today. And again, a lot of people get that confused. It's also called telemedicine. It's called remote patient monitoring. Sometimes it's called patient compliance monitoring. It's even called IOMT sometimes. But telehealth is a subset of IOMT and a very important and very visible one right now. So it's really, we see more of it. A lot of people experienced it during the crisis, the COVID-19 crisis, and it continues on as a viable means to see your medical provider and get information.
And so one of the other things you mentioned was AI and ML, and real quick, coincidentally, tomorrow's day for Design Week is AI and ML, so make sure to tune in for that. But do you mind talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning and how it relates to the medical field?
Yeah, quite. And as I mentioned, one of the big things in IoT was edge computing, and a lot of what we're seeing is that the medical devices themselves have got to be smarter. And I'll talk more about some of the details of that later. Obviously, your processing has to be smart, the way it's handled, the overall medical device itself, more the traditional ways in which we've looked at how do you make the medical device smarter, be able to do more, especially important as far as giving doctors the information they need to diagnose and have a treatment plan for a patient. But one of the things that happens on the edge, basically with medical devices, is in order to be smarter, they also need to be able to use machine learning, have the artificial intelligence machine learning aspect. And that's really important. And we're looking at that heavily. You'll see more tomorrow as far as the products and Microchip's coming up with. But it's important, again, from the medical perspective, that those devices be as smart as possible on the edge to be able to help out with the overall healthcare delivery.
Absolutely. And so do you mind walking us through an actual model for an IOMT system?
Yeah, sure. So it's important to think about the overall picture, and that you're seeing that right now. And so what we see is three different sections. On the left hand, we have the things of the Internet of Medical Things, which are the medical devices like a blood pressure cuff, pulse oximeter, thermometer, a wearable tracker. And then in the middle, you have the hub. And then on the end, you have, on the cloud. On the right side of the diagram, you have the cloud. And so what's important there is with the medical devices themselves, again, they need to be smarter, they need to be connected, they'll need to have secure communications with the hub. The hubs being either like a smartphone, a tablet, a dedicated hub, something like that. And then the things, or the medical devices themselves, are not only hard medical devices, but I also like to think of them as important functions for healthcare. With the telehealth delivery, the patient needs to be able to get his vital signs back to the doctor. And so we need things like, the doctor will need to know what's the patient's blood pressure, what's their simple heart rate and blood oxygen level, what's their temperature. And if the patient is convenient, if it's a wearable device that they're using for telehealth in the home, that's important too.
Right.
So again, we can combine those things, and as medical designers, we're seeing medical designers are putting these functions together in single telehealth or other IoMT type devices and getting all these different functions available. So that's an important part of what we're seeing. Then of course, the medical devices need to transmit that data to the hub, meaning a smartphone, a tablet, a laptop, or whatever, even an integrated specific medical hub. And then we do that over a wired to wireless connection. We're seeing more and more wireless, specifically Bluetooth in this case. And then the hub obviously has to transmit over maybe Wi-Fi or even one of the mobile data networks. We've seen 3G, 4G, and even 5G coming out for connecting in rural areas when they have a small clinic that needs to connect and send data over to a large hospital for the doctors there to evaluate and diagnose the patient that's in a remote location. So huge importance there with the connectivity.
Absolutely.
And Microchip heavily involved in those areas with Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, other connectivity, Ethernet for USB for connected type applications. And these are really important, and it's really kind of interesting because we've took the challenge when we started coming out with our medical demos, which we'll talk a little bit later. and originally some of them weren't connected. And we started using, say, Bluetooth modules or Wi-Fi modules. And it was relatively a short amount of time, well within a day, a few hours usually, that we could take an existing medical demo and get it connected. And it was cool because it already, we needed no RF experience. It was already certified in many countries like FCC in the US and other countries. And it made it for really effortless as a way to at least start out. With our demos, it was a great way to start. It's for manufacturers, designers, it's a good place to start as far as, start with low volume manufacturing and then you can go chip down later when you're high volume. So that was really important. And then the other piece between both the medical device and the hub, as well as the hub out to the cloud, would be security. And cybersecurity is a huge issue these days. Everyone hears a lot about it. There's been a lot in the news as far as data breaches with medical companies in the past, which is obviously very serious, and that tends to be on the cloud end. So the security on the cloud end is really important because you got people like, you got the individual patient who utilizes that data, or you got a healthcare provider, you've got an insurance company, you've got loved ones, you've got analytics being used for large populations of people to analyze the data.
You have to keep it safe.
Yeah, and you have to keep that safe. And that's where a lot of the more media frenzy hacks, basically, where the biggest stories have been in the media. But something that's unfortunately happening, we're seeing a little bit now, is we're seeing problems with the medical devices themselves not being secure enough. And so when they're transmitting to, say, that phone or that hub, sometimes there's things like man-in-the-middle attacks and other things that are going on.
That you really have to protect yourself from.
And you have to protect yourself both ways. So integrating security in the MCU, having specific authentication devices for the cloud, things like that are super critical at this point. So again, that's kind of the model we're seeing as far as, Internet of Medical things and what all is involved these days with it.
I got you. And so one of the things you mentioned earlier that I wanted to see how it relates to the IOMT model is patient compliance. Where does that come into play?
And that's something that people don't usually think about with Internet of Medical things, and has a lot to do with medication or drug delivery. And again, it's the monitoring of the device itself as well as how the patient's using it. It's really important to be able to know that for legal reasons, for care reasons, and quality of care reasons, things like that. To know, did the patient take the medication at the proper time? Did they take the proper dosage? Are they using the device properly, like an injector? Are they holding it correctly to make sure it's working properly or not, or it's not even actuating because it wasn't held properly? So all that data needs to be known by the healthcare provider to make sure the treatment plan is being followed and the patient's getting the best care, as well as obviously to protect themselves legally in case there's problems that arise in that respect. So there's a lot of reasons to do that. And the pharmaceutical companies, the drug delivery device manufacturers are all really on board with this, and it's a huge deal to make sure that these devices are being monitored properly. And also even just for their own data to make sure that they understand that the device is working properly and getting usage data or even just performance data from the device itself to make sure they can
refine the product and
refine the product in the future if there needs upgrades in the field or things like that.
Yeah. And so let's say I wanted to actually design an IOMT capable device. What sort of capabilities do I need to keep in mind when dreaming of what the application can do?
Yeah. And I like to keep it simple. We really want to make sure that it's smart, connected, secured. I've referred to this before, but basically, and there's a lot of ways to be smart. I mean, we talked about, traditionally when you do a design, you're going to say, okay, I need more features. I may need to up to more powerful processor. Yeah, it's going to cost more money. My bill of materials, yeah, it's going to, draw more power. And there's times that has to happen that way. But there's other times it actually doesn't. We were surprised at first and been surprising a lot of our medical clients with the fact that we utilize something called core-independent peripherals that's in a lot of our microcontrollers. And we've been able to demonstrate medical devices that for the next generation could have gone to a much powerful microcontroller and more peripheral accessories that needed to be put on the board that weren't there in the previous generation, but didn't need to because the core-independent peripherals meant that the core could either go off and do something else or it could go to sleep, and while the peripherals are handling all the different things. And we've got a couple of demos that show that. We'll talk a lot more about that with the smart home, but we've got a reflective heart rate monitor that uses a single chip heart rate measurement capability, and then the nebulizer I think you'll see in the smart home, which is a single chip nebulizer, getting rid of a lot of components that didn't need to be on there in the first place from the huge monster nebulizers we're used to in the past. A little pocket-sized thing, it's really kind of neat.
I look forward to it.
Another thing is important to understand, with processing power is the incredible product line we have with FPGAs. It's amazing what you can do with those as far as for those have needs of high computing and the customization is huge to get FPGA. Look at our FPGA portfolio.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later.
Right.
But
And finally, one thing people don't always talk about, but I threw this in, was low power and touch input sensing type applications. One of the things that's been interesting is we've looked at the FDA mod database, and this is the database where complaints come in about medical devices, is when a device is hard to utilize, there's problems. Patients have problems, using the device in the home, or caregivers giving the device. And it's been interesting by applying just sound techniques of using simple touch versus mechanical switches and instructions on an LCD screen. It's interesting how that really makes the device smarter, so the patient doesn't have to have a medical degree to be able to operate the device, and they can utilize it properly. So that's been an interesting part of the whole strategy of having smart medical devices. The next part would be connected. I talked a lot about that earlier. Bluetooth, Wi-Fi for wireless. Ethernet, USB are used a lot for connected type of applications, wired connected applications. And so those are things that Microchip offers. Again, I mentioned that before. And finally, our cloud-based applications, which were actually, I think, talked about yesterday.
Yes, they were.
In the live stream yesterday with Any Cloud Anywhere type of application, where we got development boards that medical designers can utilize to quickly prototype, like we do with our demos, to quickly prototype, get on the cloud authenticated. The devices are provisioned to be able to get on the major cloud suppliers and get your data up and running so you can test that out and check it. So it's really been kind of neat how that worked. Again, we were able to get those things running within a few hours for devices that we didn't have hooked up to a cloud.
Which is really kind of amazing.
It
that
is,
increase in application power versus the time it took to add that.
Yeah, and that's the last thing you want to do is have to spend a lot of time. Like, I know we've seen this as our clients in transition. It's like, many devices, just because they have such a long run and have to go through FDA certification again, they're a little bit lagging on getting, connectivity,
new features,
security. Yeah, to get the new features online, which is understandable in this field. And so when it came to that point, medical clients were pleasantly surprised to find out, oh, I can just prototype this thing, today.
Yeah.
I get the board, I do it today, and then I can start really looking at what my final design's got to look like. And that saved a lot of time and a lot of expertise instead of hiring a consultant or doing that kind of thing. So
absolutely, and it makes your product better.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. And so, again, that goes into the whole security thing, how important it is to be able to say, we need to secure those devices, not only the data at the cloud server end, but even data and access to the medical devices themselves. The last thing you want is someone hacking the data and getting a wrong diagnosis, or hacking into, say, a infusion pump to get either to cut off the medication or to give an overdose. There's all kinds of scary things that, fortunately, a lot of them have been found out beforehand, but there's been a few things happen that have been a little scary as far as the capability of hacking. So that security is a huge thing in medical.
It's
super
life-saving.
Important at this point. Life-saving is definitely the whole point of that. So yeah, those are the things I think that really, we want to boil it down, what are really important when looking at your next medical design, really.
And so I noticed that the last point you have on secure is functional safety. I'm familiar with functional safety when it comes to appliances. Do you mind telling me a little bit about how it relates to medical devices?
Sure. Yeah, appliances, automotive, and a lot of other areas where safety critical applications are important, utilize functional safety. And so it goes without saying that with medical, it's incredibly important to look at that. And one of the cool things is that Microchip has been working in that area to make sure that our customers, our medical design clients or customers are able to meet their 13485 requirements. We do everything with our product quality, but also our qualified compilers. Software is a big issue. You can purchase a compiler that is qualified to several standards, including IEC 62304, which has to do with the overall big picture of software as far as the architecture, your maintenance, your testing, things like that. And then the 62304 medical standard calls out another standard, the industrial standard, which is IEC 62304. And this really tends to apply more towards developing the code itself. And starting with a compiler that's qualified, and then also using some of our low-level functional safety software routines, really makes that job easier as far as meeting the standards. And ultimately, when you go to FDA and showing that you met the medical standards, is a lot easier to get FDA certification also. So that's a big part of it. So yeah, for those who are not knowing, you can go to microchip.com/functional safety to find out more about that.
Yep. And we're going to make sure that the links are in the comments description. And if you can't find it, just email us at livestream@microchip.com, and I will personally make sure that you guys get the link you need. So that's functional safety. Shifting gears a little bit, do you mind describing the design of an actual medical wearable? What somebody would have to think about if they wanted to do that?
Sure. And that's a big space. It's, as I mentioned before, it's becoming a big thing. There's already medical wearables out on the market. There's more coming. They're being used again to monitor people coming from hospitals, people with chronic diseases. There's just a lot of things. And obviously there's the consumer devices too that people are just interested in seeing how their health is. That these devices aren't necessarily FDA qualified, but they still want to see that. But as far as an actual medical wearable, it's important that we follow, again, those guidelines. Is it smart? Is it connected? Is it secure?
Right.
Is it functionally safe? Those are important things to keep in mind. So what we've done, taking all that Microchip has and all that Microchip and our expertise in this area in medical and such, is we've developed medical design, or medical demos, basically. And we have quite a number of them. We'll see more in the smart home later here in a few minutes. But here you see some we've developed that recently will play into the IoT, telehealth, and those areas where you say, I've got a patient at home, I want a wearable device. So you can start with a wearable tracker. Then you can add functionality, say from our pulse oximeter, to get simple heart rate, blood oxygen. You can get more complex cardiac rhythms from ECG. You can get temperature with a thermometer. And so again, these design files, these demos are located on microchip.com/medical. You can download them, and you can either look at how we did it to get an idea how you want to do it, because everybody wants to do it a little bit different. That's understandable. Plus, there's things you may want to obviously do as far as you work towards FDA compliance. But you can start a hardware prototype, you can get your firmware development, all of that. A lot of that's done for you, either to validate how we've done it, and you can see how we've done it, or actually start that as a starting point before you actually add to the design for your own requirements as well as meeting FDA. We've also got some in the area of drug delivery. Actually, we've got a MEMS pump, utilizing for a lot of applications to pumping liquids and gases. We've got single chip nebulizer, again, the bottom right nebulizers are, again, good examples of core independent peripherals, where you've taken a nebulizer with multiple components, expensive, big, unwieldy. Patients, really don't like them because you have to carry it around in a big suitcase if you're going on a trip, or take it with you. Now we've got something that's pocket size. We've got, one of our customers developed a pocket-sized nebulizer, really nice for clients to be able to get their albuterol treatments and just be able to carry that around. And the design is great because it's only one chip, really. So you get the board, bill of materials cost is down, board size is down, battery size is down.
Complexity is down.
And the complexity is down for your design.
Right.
A lot of it's taken care of. So these are huge things to be able to get a good running start when you're working on your medical design. Is take advantage, look at our demos, take advantage of that, and work with our support teams on those. And
I guess just to reiterate, we give you guys the actual design files. So if you wanted to look at that, adapt it, it is totally at your disposal. And like you said, we have all of that at microchip.com/medical. And once again, if you can't find it, just email us or say it in the comments, and I'll make sure that somebody drops it.
And what's available there, just to let you know, is we've got the schematics, we have the C source code, and you've got application notes or user guides. So pretty much everything you need to get started. It's something I would, when I was designing boards, I would love to have stuff like this. Like, yeah, I got it.
Absolutely, of course. So thank you very much. That sort of brings us to the end of your section. I'm going to shift gears once again over to Avery, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about medical device manufacturers and the challenges that they face. Take it away, Avery.
Of course, man. I was starting to think you guys forgot about me.
Never.
I completely understand. It's hard to stop Martin when he's on a medical run. But like Clifford just mentioned, I'm going to talk to you guys about some of the medical device manufacturers challenges that they face, starting with computational power. Not only do some of these imaging devices have a power and a thermal constraint, but they also require a level of processing, compute capability to deal with the complex signal processing side of things. Next, moving on to scalability and flexibility. There will always be these evolving algorithms when it comes to signal and image processing. There needs to be a device that can handle and adapt on the fly to meet those requirements. And when we talk about scalability, when we lean over to the more portable side of things, a lot of times there's going to be the less space that a device takes up, the better. So which makes the device size very important. Lastly, when it comes to reliability and security, when looking at stuff like MRIs and radiation therapy, radiation is going to be a factor, which can cause devices to malfunction, requiring the device to have some type of power radiation tolerant feature to keep the reliability aspect secure. Now, lastly, on security, and Martin kind of harped on this earlier, but a patient's information is very valuable. So we want to make sure we keep that information protected and secured. So that takes a very high precedence. Now, I kind of talked about some of the challenges, but what are challenges without solutions? So let's talk about solutions, and specifically, let's talk about solutions, Microchip solutions with FPGAs. Now, really quickly, for those that don't know what an FPGA is, that's okay. It is an integrated circuit that contains programmable logic blocks via programmable interconnects. Now, let's throw that hard book definition out the window. I like to think of an FPGA like a blank canvas. The logic blocks are the paint, the interconnect is a painter's hand, and the I/O blocks are the paintbrushes. Ideally, in other words, a user can paint a picture that they want for their desired application. Now, why would an FPGA help with these design challenges? Let's start with the efficiency. An FPGA has multi-threading capabilities. What does that mean? It enables the implementation of different functions in parallel, which can deliver power-efficient computing and high performance in real time while consuming the lowest power possible. With flexibility, an FPGA can be reprogrammed, like I said, guys, a blank canvas, on the chip level later on to combat those evolving algorithms. As for size and cost, we do offer a small form factor in our packaging options. Lastly, for that reliability and security aspect, we take into account the radiation tolerant. And I'm going to talk about some of the steps we take to take that into account, that FPGAs must be that level of radiation tolerant to kind of mess with those, kind of compete against those hardware failures to keep them at a minimum. And for security, we do offer robust security that to keep that information from a patient very secure.
So Avery, I have to say the way that you described FPGAs is probably my favorite way I've ever heard anybody, even from my education a couple of years ago. I think that should be in every textbook. So 10 out of 10, phenomenal job on that.
I appreciate that. When I was learning about FPGAs, I wish somebody would have painted me the picture like that.
I think it would have been very helpful for everybody. Furthermore, do you mind diving a little bit deeper into some of the FPGA and SoC system on chips that Microchip offers for people to actually try out?
Of course. So let me talk about the FPGA portfolio. And one of the biggest takeaways, guys, is we are a mid-range density low power leader. So we do take low power into very high consideration. But talking about the different generations, let's start with G3, which is going from left to right. That is our Igloo 2, and that's our Igloo and ProA6 device. Now, these are going to be our smaller devices that are kind of used for system initialization, I/O expansion, those types of things. Moving to our generation 4, this is going to be Igloo 2 and Smart Fusion 2. Now, these are going to be our low density FPGAs with more resources. More resources, I mean, they're able to support DDR2 and DDR3. They have that 5 gigabit SerDes, and it's mostly going to be kind of used for that low to mid resolution imaging. Finally, going to our generation 5. Now these two bad boys right here, they're the mid-range density FPGAs, but they have the resources to achieve the lowest power while also matching it with high performance capabilities like 12.7 gigabit SerDes and being able to support even DDR4. And the PolarFire SoC even has a hardened 5-core RISC-V embedded processor. So when I mentioned that real-time processing element, this thing can take it up to the next level. Finally, to back our generation of families up, we have an assortment of resources, like the embedded hard and soft processors that I kind of mentioned to increase the processing capability. We have our own design software liberal to help when programming the FPGA and to make it as easy to program as possible. And then we have our assortment of development kits for people looking to get started and on the early stages of their designing phase. We have direct and companion core IP that kind of meshes with the imaging application space really well. And finally, to validate the timing and power needs, I know I've kind of been harping on low power, where you need to have a way to kind of check and make sure that it is in fact low power. So we do have the resources to kind of validate that.
I love it. So Avery, do you mind talking a little bit about where we currently see FPGAs in medical applications right now?
Of course, and I'm going to kind of jump off the talking points that I've been doing in low power and reliability and security and kind of mesh those with applications we see in the medical space. So like I kind of mentioned with low power, we can achieve up to 50% lower power than our competitors by being non-volatile. We know power can be a huge factor in medical imaging applications like ultrasounds, and when it comes to ultrasound, it's literally skin to machine contact. So you don't want this thing to be hot, you don't want this thing to be warm, so you want it to dissipate as the least amount of heat as possible. So you do want it to be low power. And one thing that low power also gives you, low power eliminates heat sinks and fans. That makes designing a lot easier because it's going to take up a lot less space. So when you design your device like a medical tracker, you can make it a lot more compact and a lot more portable. And moving to reliability and radiation, when it comes to that, we are SEU immune, and we do have a zero failure in time rate FPGA configuration that makes sure that the device doesn't fail when working with radiation in MRI and radiation therapy. So we do take that radiation into account, because you don't want these devices failing when people's lives are in stake. You want them to be at the highest reliability as possible. And lastly, when it comes to security, we take those steps. We have a built-in anti-tamper and theft tamper detectors. We have secure boot, capabilities, and then we have crypto accelerators to make sure that the patient's information is very safe and very secure. And that is going to kind of be seen in the kind of diagnostic side of things when they're trying to figure out what's wrong with the patient, and that you don't want to misdiagnose somebody with miscorrupted information. So we want to make sure that information is secure.
Absolutely. And so, Avery, where can people go to learn more?
Of course. So you guys are seeing a link on the screen right now, and I'm not going to read out the entire link because we do have a limited time, guys, and it's a pretty long link. But it's our FPGAs and PLD page. This link, like Clifford mentioned, is going to be in the description. It's going to be in the comments. So, and if you cannot find it, please reach out to us and we'll send it to you, because we do want you guys to dive a little bit deeper into FPGAs. And in fact, we do have, again, that keyword low power. We have a low power leadership talk track right after this. So don't go anywhere. Use a quick bathroom break and come back and sit down and enjoy our low power leadership. That's not even just about medical. It's about all the applications where low power can help out your design.
Cool. Well, good job, guys. Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the presentation portion for both of our segments today. I'm going to give you guys, the viewers, a little bit of time to think of whatever questions you want to ask these guys. And I'm going to throw it over to Michael Pierce in the smart home, and he's going to walk you guys through some demos. Howdy, Mike.
Howdy, Clifford. It's good to be here again, and welcome back to the smart home. I'm still here with Zhang. And Zhang, can you tell us about some of these demos on the table here today?
Yes, certainly. Today, I would like to show you some of the medical demos I have made from home use. You may have seen or used a variety of medical electronics at home, like a pulse oximeter for measuring blood oxygen level and heart rate, a digital thermometer for measuring body temperature, an electrocardiogram device for monitoring basic heart condition, a blood pressure meter for measuring systolic and diastolic blood pressure, a patient monitor for measuring vital signs, a nebulizer for treating asthma disease, or micropump and syringe pump for drug delivery applications. Microchip provides total system solutions for all these common household medical electronics.
So thanks for that overview. Is there some of these you can show us today, how they work?
Yes, let's try a few. Let's begin with this pulse oximeter. This demo measures users' blood oxygen level and heart rate using optical signals. So let me demonstrate it. First, I'll place the finger clip onto one of my fingers, then start a test. It's measuring, and here we go. My blood oxygen level, or SpO2 reading, is 99, and my heart rate is 81 beat per minute. So lucky for me, it's a good reading.
So what's the next one over there?
So how about Michael, do you want to check your temperature today? This demo is a digital thermometer demo board. It measures users' core body temperature with an infrared sensor. So Michael is taking a contactless temperature measurement from his forehead, and his body temperature is 97.7 degree Fahrenheit.
His vitals look
Good.
good.
You have a good body temperature. And next to you, have you recently checked your heart condition, cardiac condition? This demo is a single lead electrocardiogram monitor demo board. It basically measures users different differential voltage generated by users each heartbeat. So as soon as Michael presses both of his finger onto the electrode, it automatically starts taking measurement. and the real data being sent to an Android app. As you can see, Michael's ECG pulsation waveform being plotted in the app, as well as his heart rate, RR interval, and other artificial measurement. So it looks like you have a good cardiac condition today.
Oh, that's good to know. I'm still alive. So, what about this really big, really cool looking one here?
Yes, if we integrate all this individual demo board for measuring people's vital signs, the pulse ox for measuring blood oxygen level, the thermometer for the temperature, the ECG for the cardiac condition, and the blood pressure meter into one system. That basically give us a structure of a patient monitor. So with that in mind, I would like to show you our patient monitor demo. The system is based on Microchip's Sun A5D2 NPU, an ARM Cortex A5 microprocessor. It can simultaneously process data coming from multiple medical sensors, as well as controlling WVG LCD touchscreen, in which features Microchip's Max Touch controller.
So I see we've got a nebulizer over there. They mentioned it earlier. Can you show us that one working?
We got 3 more demos, including the nebulizer for drug delivery applications. So this is a nebulizer demo. It can be used for treating asthma disease. And this is a micro pump, and this is a syringe pump. Both of these demos can be used for drug delivery applications. And Microchip provide all this reference design, and you can visit our Microchip website, medical website at microchip.com/medical, where you can download and you can see all this reference design and more. And you can also download medical application notes, schematics, and source code, everything needed for to power this reference design, and it can power yours too.
So it's good to know that all this information is available for everyone out there to be able to download and actually start their own development. I heard you're going to be live asking questions later in the day as well. Was that true?
Yes, I'll be here answering your questions.
Will you be in the smart home answering questions?
In the smart home, and I think you're going to be online later in the day as well. So keep an eye out for the live Q&A afterwards. So back to you, Wayne, I think.
Yeah, perfect. Speaking of Q&A, I actually have a really, really quick and easy one for Shane while we have him on the line here. I have a question from Kayone. Sorry if I've gotten your name wrong. Wants to know if they're allowed to build products from the Microchip demo circuits and sell the products. So basically, how much of the circuitry from the reference designs are they allowed to reuse?
Yeah, I can probably take that one. The designs, the demo designs are really there to give you the functionality. I mean, once basically that you, as a medical designer, you call it your design, then the whole design really is your responsibility with the FDA. They have a term called suitability as far as which components you use and such. And so basically you can utilize those, but you're going to have to go through suitability analysis and all your design documentation and everything before you submit to the FDA or the EU or whatever region of the world you live in. So functionally speaking, you can utilize the components and such. In fact, you can use whatever Microchip components make sense in the design. You don't have to just use the ones we did. But as far as actually selling it in a medical space, yeah, you have to go through medical regulations and certification in the country you're in, and therefore the design, the whole thing becomes a responsibility of you as the designer. Okay. So that would pretty much cover that, I think.
Perfect.
Good question.
And that kind of dovetails into another line of questions that we've gotten. You know, the specific question was from Anish. He's asking, which processor is best suited for a medical device that drive a BLDC motor? And that kind of goes into a question around, you know, are there medical grade devices that we offer?
Okay.
Or how does that work?
Well, as far as again, you know, what you use for motor control is really up to you. And again, work with our support team, or if you know, however you buy your products, work with your support team there as far as Microchip products. We have a lot of good things in motor control as far as our DS PIC base, but there's others you can utilize either in 8-bit, 32-bit. So again, it's up to the application space. So it's hard to answer that question in regards to that. But the other part has to do with medical grade. And that's a really good question because there is, a lot of people think that all semiconductor components to go into medical devices have to be medical grade, and that's just not true. The vast majority of semiconductor devices, chips and such that go into medical designs are standard product off the shelf. And again, it gets back to that the medical designer is, you know, he or she is the one or their company is the one who has to determine suitability and submit that as part of their qualification to the or certification to the FDA. Now, Microchip does have a line of certain devices that are medical grade, and they are very good devices. They have a lot to do with implantable devices, and a lot of times because why we work towards medical grade has to do a lot with the fact that they tend to end up being on more like modules and small PC boards and things like that, which kind of changes that definition from a standard semiconductor over to looking more like a medical device. So we have the capability to have lots of customization in the medical grade area within Microchip to be able to do that customization as far as putting in modules and boards and things, as far as having medical grade type devices. But so we do have a good line of medical grade. Again, you can look into that as far as at the website. But like I said, the vast majority of medical applications use standard semiconductors, and we've seen, we have such a broad line, we've seen almost all of our semiconductor types used, whether it be microcontrollers, microprocessors, analog, security obviously, memory, connectivity parts, a lot of different types of parts, just standard off the shelf that are used in your typical medical designs.
Okay, okay. And just a clarifying question from Jorge around basically the reference designs. Is there any sort of license that's required for a client to use those?
No, there's no license. Again, that's why it's on the website. You can freely download it, although I think there will be coming forward a click-through license basically saying you're going to use Microchip components as we move forward. But as far as actually paying for anything along those lines, no, you don't have to pay anything. You get to use the designs as far as your applications.
Oh, perfect, perfect. Okay, I'm going to go back to kind of the beginning of the chat here and ask a question from Dan Rhodes. How is private medical data secured using these home care devices that we were discussing a little earlier?
Okay.
And I think Zhang may have had an answer to that one if he's still with us.
Did John? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, so can you repeat the question again?
Yeah. How is private medical data secured using these home care devices?
Yes, we understand the security concern in many industries, including medical. There are many different ways to protect our medical data, from internet cloud security using our part like ECC 608 or a newer device, and to the local data security into this inside the demo on the chip level. We have a lot of our newer microcontroller, like 32-bit microcontroller SAML11, features a robust security functions like a security key storage, chip level tamper resistance, secure bootloader, and secure boot, and also another. We also have a part like SHA-204, 206 authentication chip, add another layer of protection for data. So please contact our local support we can have hardware and software based solutions like functional safeties to meet your unique requirement.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, you know, we have about 5 minutes left here. I don't want to make anyone late for the talk track starting at 10 a.m. So I'll ask, you know, kind of one more line of questions. There were quite a few questions around the implementation of wireless technologies. Can you, you know, specifically around, you know, implementing 3G, 4G, or LTE modules into medical devices? Do either of you have any comment around, you know, resources that we have available to help clients get started with wireless devices in medical?
Yeah, in that area, one of the most critical things it has to do, I think, is in timing. We've got some great timing solutions utilizing, you know, for those types of applications as they move forward. So that's a, you know, it's a good question as we look at it, that, you know, the critical things that we offer for that.
Okay, perfect.
Well, that way they can do the wide angle.
So one of the, so basically it looks like we're kind of closing in on this, and we have a few more things to discuss, so I'm going to close questions off here. If we didn't get your question answered, please send an email to livestream@microchip.com, and we will get back to you personally. Clifford will get back to you personally.
I will get back to you personally, absolutely.
So, Clifford,
I'll send us home.
Let's kind of, I think we have a couple talk tracks we may want to discuss.
Yes, so if you guys can see my screen momentarily, if you guys just go to microchip.com/designweek and log in, making an account only takes a couple seconds, you'll be able to join the upcoming talk tracks. First up is Low Power Leadership, which starts in 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and then shortly thereafter we have How to Design Telehealth and Medical IoT Devices with 2 of the guests that we had on today's show. Just to remember that the event doesn't end once the live stream does, so make sure to go to microchip.com/designweek to check out what else we have. And tomorrow, like I mentioned at the beginning, we'll be talking about AI and ML, so make sure to tune in for that. But I'd like to give a huge thank you to our 2 guests and the guests in the smart home, everybody in front of the camera, behind the camera. It takes a whole team to do this, and thank you, the viewers, because without you, it wouldn't happen. And I'll see you tomorrow. Stay happy, stay healthy, and hope you enjoy the show.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.